How can we use our educational technology to help design students get better at seeing other people's perspectives and forming their own opinions? Now, traditionally, activities to help people, have discussions in class could look something like think, pair, share, where you ask people to think independently for a few minutes, maybe write down their thoughts on a piece of paper so that they can formulate things without the bias of other people. Then they get into pairs where they get to discuss with others and develop their critical thinking skills in seeing other people's perspectives. And then lastly, they get an opportunity to share back with the class where they get to develop their metacognition because they're reflecting on how they thought about something and how somebody else thought about something. So this is a wonderful activity, but it tends to have two minor pitfalls, which is one, sometimes the person you're paired with has kind of the exact same opinion as you. And so in a way, the conversation doesn't really go as far. And then two, the person you're paired with might not always have spent as much time thinking about it, and the conversation doesn't really end up being as fruitful as we'd like. That's something that I've been thinking a lot about as an instructor, which is where this UI exploration that I've been working on comes in. Now, in my class, which is a design class, a UX design class specifically, we tend to talk a lot about applications. And so for this specific exercise, I want to help students develop their ability to understand what's important. So the question here is, what is the most important UX change Airbnb made following its new focus on experiences? Now, the interface will look something like the comments in Figma or a Miro whiteboard. I can turn on the individual reflection, and then students can start coming in and leaving their comments on the board. Except unlike a traditional Figma or Miro board, the comments are hidden to just the students themselves. So if I turn off the individual reflection, the board stays empty. And while the individual reflection is on, the students can only see their own opinions on the board. This allows students to have independent time to reflect on what they're thinking about. A more theatrical thing about this is that it allows for the element of surprise, which is something that's often not very much explored in education. By giving me the ability to turn on the group reflection, I can create some suspense or tension around where we might think the most common areas of commenting are, or what parts of the UI are not going to be commented on. And then when I come in and turn on the group reflection, we can see that now the students have a moment of a bit of surprise or wonder of like, whoa, where's my comment in relation to all of this? As an instructor, I can scroll through these and see, as a class, if we're working virtually, everybody can scroll through the comments and read them, click on them to highlight certain comments. Another thing that is a blind spot for the instructors is what are these thoughts that were shared? And there's an opportunity there for the instructor to be able to look at the different opinions and then more intentionally form groups for students to discuss in ways that are maybe in opposition to each other or have different perspectives so that the conversations between students are richer in the classroom. What's really interesting and powerful to me as an instructor is to use something, whether it's a large language model or some kind of semantic analysis, to analyze these comments and create groups based on them. So let's flip into that and see what that looks like. Here is a very rudimentary discourse coordinator UI. So on the x-axis, we can see we have different and similar opinions. And then we have near and far for proximity on the UI. Let's say I want to have the safest kinds of conversations for people who are similar and near to each other. So these are people who pointed to similar things on the UI and said similar things about the question that we originally asked about which element is most important for Airbnb's new experience focus. And so here I can then choose to create breakout rooms or ask these people to raise their hands so I can facilitate a discussion with the whole room. Now, what gets very interesting is being able to look at people who pointed to similar areas but had different opinions. So these three in green were all pointing to the same tab bar on the UI, but they said different things. And so I can have conversations about that where we're creating some kind of, tension. Why did we think different things even though we're pointing at the same UI? At the bottom, we have far and proximity and different opinions. I think this one's kind of obvious. People who tended to point at different things will likely have different reasoning. But in a similar way, a point of tension could be we are having similar opinions, but pointing at very different parts of the UI. And so the color coordination for each of these quadrants helps me facilitate conversations and create breakout rooms. So this is the kind of thing that I would love to see more of in our educational technology. The tools for me as an instructor to analyze what people are thinking about and then form opportunistic groups for conversation to be more insightful and rich for the students. These are the kinds of things that are important for developing metacognition or developing richer soft skills in people. How do we think? How do we reason? How do we negotiate opinions and disagree with each other? So that's it for this UI exploration. It's called the Discourse Coordinator for now, I suppose. And it's grounded squarely in a virtual artifact because in my class, I teach UX. And so we tend to talk a lot about interfaces, which are visual. So if you're a design instructor, what do you think about this? Do you see any room for something like this to work in your classroom? Do you have any ideas about how this can enrich or maybe harm conversations in class? Personally, as both a designer and an instructor, I think something like this shouldn't be too hard to implement. Maybe it's a plugin for Figma and it's able to analyze the comments, or something that Miro can integrate for creating conversations. And with a connection to Zoom, we can automatically create breakout rooms between the two of them. I'd love to hear what you have to think about this in the comments below. If you're interested in seeing more experiments like this, you can subscribe to our channel where we're always tinkering on these kinds of experiments, and I'll see you in the next one.